Hej och välkomna till Erik Penser Bank och bolagsdagen den 3 juni. Jag heter Claus och är hälsovårdsanalytiker här på banken och kommer vara med och moderera en del av bolag som är här och presenterar idag. Inte bara här i rum nummer 3 utan jag kommer även figurera i andra lokaler. Jag ser fram emot en väldigt spännande dag idag med som sagt många bolag i spridda sektorer som jag presenterar. Det bolag som ska näst ut här i detta rum i alla fall är det danska bolaget Initiator Pharma. Och här för att presentera bolaget, eller på länk för att presentera bolaget, har vi dess vd Claus Olesen. Claus.
Thank you very much, Claus, and good morning to everyone. So I said my name is Claus Elsborg Olesen, and I'm the CEO of Initiator Pharma. Next slide, please. So Initiator Pharma is a company dedicated to safe therapeutic modulation of monoamine neurotransmitters. And by applying this technology, we can actually provide therapeutic treatments for a range of disorders in the central nervous system, which is significant unmet medical needs. We have 2 proprietary drug candidates in clinical development, IP 2015 and IP 2018. Next slide, please. Next slide. Okay, sorry. Yeah. So our clinical pipeline, you can say we have a clinical pipeline consisting of 3 programs based on the 2 drug candidates that I mentioned. And I would like to state here, one thing that's really important for us when we look at drug candidates, that is that we are targeting validated pathways. So we are targeting something that we know will have efficacy in the indications we're pursuing. So you can say by going into erectile dysfunction, we know that the dopaminergic system is really important for driving erectile dysfunction, or the function of the erection. And also we know in pain, which is one of the other programs we have, we know that dopamine is a validated pathway. This is a significant de-risking to the pipeline. As we are saying, we are bringing in drug candidates. We know that the pathways are working. And also we now know, since we have put our compounds into humans, we also know that they are safe and tolerable. So this is significant de-risking of all the programs we have in our pipeline. But in our pipeline, we have 2 programs for erectile dysfunction, for organic erectile dysfunction. I'll get back to that. And the same with psychogenic erectile dysfunction. We have submitted an application for erectile dysfunction and organic erectile dysfunction, and that will be a partnership together with Mac Clinical Research in the UK that are financing that part of the clinical study that is conducted at their site. The IP 2018 trial for psychogenic erectile dysfunction is in an ongoing phase 2A. And then we are preparing the neuropathic pain program, the latest addition to our pipeline. We're preparing for a proof of principle trial, and we'll come back to the market when we are ready to submit the CTA so we can get started with this proof of principle study. So again, there's a significant de-risking in these clinical programs. As we know, we are working with validated pipelines. We know how they behave, and we also know the side effects of these and how to avoid some of these. Next slide, please. Not alone are we knowing that there are validated pathways, but it's also targeting very attractive commercial markets. So erectile dysfunction, expected to consist of more than 300 million men in the coming years. And we know about 30 to 40% of the patients suffering from ED do not respond to the standard care treatment. There's a number of reasons for that, and we can again split that out into 2 groups, either organic causes or from psychogenic origin. But what we are saying here, and by targeting the non-responders, we can actually go Cialis and the other PD-5 inhibitors that have been sold to all the responders. So we estimate the peak sales for the organic drug, the 2015 drug, could be in the 1 to 2.3 billion euros annually, and the psychogenic market could be from 700 million up to 1.9 billion euros annually. And again, we can get these premium pricing because we differentiate it for everything else in the market by targeting the non-responders. Looking at the 3rd clinical program, the neuropathic pain, where we're looking at trigeminal neuralgia, which is an orphan drug indication. In this, you can say there's a lot less patients, but again, Going into orphan, there's a lot of benefits, a higher price for the product. Also, you get more protection both on your data and your IP, so you could actually make a very, very attractive commercial opportunity here. Here we estimate peak sales could between 0.5 to 1.4 billion euro, and of course there is always the opportunity to expand the brand or the use of this into other orphan drug pain indications after the approval within trigeminal neuralgia. So Initiator Pharma have here multiple shots on goals in high value drug markets and also in very diversified drug markets. Again, de-risking the overall profile of the company. Next slide, please. That's a slow transition here to the next slide. I don't see any. Okay, sorry. Now I got the slide. So Initiator Pharma, we provide a unique offering. So we are maximizing the value of our proprietary drug candidates. They are clinical stage. We have had them in humans. We know they're safe. We have a highly experienced development team behind the company driving it forward. And also a really important fact is that the clinical trials that we are going, again, as I said, we are going into validated pathways. So again, we can do actually very short trials because of the effect of our compounds. So actually with a modest investment, we can reach multiple inflection points. Also, the endpoints in the clinical trials, both in the pain and the ED, is validated by the regulatory authorities. So we know what we're looking for. We don't need to invent anything new. And again, we can obtain these clinical efficacy endpoints with a fairly short dosing of the patients. All combined with the validated pathways, the clinical endpoints, is actually providing a very attractive risk-reward profile. And in addition to that, now with the addition of the neuropathic pain program, we actually also have this orphan drug indication where we can actually, potentially obtain a fast-track approval, so we can accelerate the development and shorten the time to the market for the benefit of the patients. So Initiator Pharma, we are developing safe and efficacious drug to the benefit of patients and to the commercial value of the company. Next slide, please. So what are the key inflection points that we are going to see this year and in the coming years and beyond? So as I said, we filed the phase 2b protocol for the organic erectile dysfunction, and we expect the approval of that during Q3, so we can start the dosing of the patients in the organic trial, depending on COVID-19, of course. Then we're going to have the completion of the IP 2018, the phase 2a trial in psychogenic ED, and we're going to expect the results later this year. And then also we'll initiate the proof of principle in the neuropathic pain program. So this is a stepping stone going into the trigeminal neuralgia patients. We want to learn more about the pain profile of our drug at various doses, what we call the PK/PD relationship. And this is what we'll do in this proof of principle trial that will be providing the good grounds to get into the right dosing levels in the trigeminal neuralgia patients. Next year, we'll have completed this proof of principle trial. We will complete the phase 2b for organic erectile dysfunction. And also we will complete a MAD, so that's a multiple ascending dose, with the IP 2015 drug, which are the drug that we're using for 2 programs. So now instead of just using the drug as an on-demand, we can actually do repeated dosing with this compound. Then we will complete the regulatory strategy for the trigeminal neuralgia, and I'll get back to that, so we can actually accelerate the development and shorten the time to market. And of course, pending the data that we get out of the IP 2018 trial, we will actually continue the development and find the right indication for that. So as you see, a lot of interesting value inflection points coming up in the near-term future. So come and join us and be a part of the journey. Next slide, please. So just short on Initiator Pharma. Initiator Pharma is a Danish company, as Claus alluded to, headquartered in Copenhagen. We listed in 2017 on the Spotlight stock market under the name of Init, and we have a market cap of approximately 185 million Swedish. We have 4,000 shareholders, and we have raised about 130 million Swedish in total. So you see here what we have in the shareholder profile is that we have now with the 2 recent investors, big investors coming in, Link and Adrigo, together with the management, is sitting on a good part of the company. But we also see the 4,000 shareholders are actively trading in the company, and we are very happy for that. Next slide, please. So the recent financing that we had in the company, Swedish in total. So we did this by doing and we got and then it would be followed up with a preferential rights issue of another approximately 30 million Swedish. And the majority of the proceeds from this round will actually go into the new clinical program, that is the neuropathic program, as we have good financing for the others. And the proceeds will actually cover us way into 2023, which is, for the first time in the history of Initiator, we have a good runway. And what's the benefit of that? Of course, the benefit is that we can continue the clinical development, so we can generate valuable data packets that we'll use in our business development efforts to go out either to identify partners or actually take it to the next level of development. The new investors that we got in, of course, I see as a significant validation. We got Link, RB, and Arrigo, long-term strong investors that complement the retail shareholder base we have. And we are really looking forward, together with all the new investors we have and the existing investors, is to create value over the next couple of years. So the timing of the preferential rights issue is expected to take place during the summer of this year. We don't have an exact timeline, as we're a little bit in the hands of the authorities in Denmark, the Finansinspektionen in Denmark, that need to approve the final perspectives. But we'll get back to the market as soon as we have more information here. Next slide, please. So the people behind the company, who is behind it, you see one of the ones in front of you, that's me. I'm one of the co-founders together with Michael Thompson, Dan Peters, and Ole Simonsen, that are coming from different backgrounds, medicinal chemistry, clinical development, and also in erectile dysfunction experts and KOLs here. So you can see we have a very strong team that is used to developing drugs and take it all the way. We are, of course, on top of us, there's a board of directors with seasoned biotech people, and also from Big Pharma, headed up by Magnus Persson, who's our chairman, who's an MD out of Stockholm, but who's also been involved in drug development for many, many years, both on the, can say in the financing side, but also from the Big Pharma side. Next slide, please. So in the beginning, I started out with a statement that sometimes can be maybe difficult to comprehend. So safe therapeutic modulation of monoamine neurotransmitters. And what is this? And on the next slide, I'll try to tell a little bit about that. Next slide. Did you get the next slide, Claus?
No, I think it's the system.
Okay, then I'll just speak to that. So on monoamines, neurotransmitters, they is, in the brain, we have a large part of the brain that consists of neurons that are using the monoamine neurotransmitters as signal molecules. So the most common ones of these are serotonin, dopamine, norepinephrine, and these compounds are actually, working in multiple ways. You can go in, they actually have functions in both emotion, arousal, mood, sexual function, and memory, and many other things. So there's a balance between all of these. You cannot say one monoamine is responsible for one thing. So you see there needs to be a tight balance between the regulation of these and the phenotype that you see. What is really interesting with monoamines is this is a field that is explored for more than 30 years. So it's a truly validated technology. We have been treating depression for many, many years with drugs, modulating the monoamine levels, especially the serotonin level, and so also for pain. However, one of the significant disadvantages of the way that they have been treating is that they have been too specific. So suddenly you got too much of one thing. So example, people suffering from depression getting antidepressants often gets too much serotonin, so they had negative side effects, for example, on the sexual function. And what we are actually saying here, we are coming in with a new generation of compounds that actually utilize all the benefits, but we do this because we have a good profile, so we don't get the severe side effects that we'll see with some of the others, both as toxicity, liver toxicity, and cardiovascular complications, and so on. So this is what we have in Initiator Pharma. Next slide, please. So expanding our clinical pipeline, we are going into as I said, neuropathic pain. And if you take the next slide, Claus. So neuropathic pain and pain in general is highly regulated by monoamines. And we know that this is also, as I said before, is something that's been used in other drugs. One example could be the Loxetine that was developed by Eli Lilly. That was actually provided relief in some pain indications, but it came actually with a significant number of side effects: sexual problems, liver tox, increased risk of suicide, actually an FDA black box warning. So you can say, despite having efficacy, this drug actually sold for $4 billion a year in the last year of its patent life. It still has, huge amount of side effects that you want to avoid. That is actually limiting the use of this compound for many other indications. So again, in the IP-TN21 program, we're actually bringing in a candidate that differentiates, because we will change this safety and efficacy paradox. And we'll do this with our proprietary molecules. Next slide, please. So what we are doing, we'll go into trigeminal neuralgia. Trigeminal neuralgia is an orphan drug indication. It hits about 13 out of 100,000 individuals worldwide. We see it more often coming out in women than men above the age of 50. We have a few examples of youth getting it as well, but here it's very rare. It's a very severe pain that actually comes as a lightning struck. It's a pain that goes down over your face, over the trigeminal nerve of your face, and it can come suddenly. It's a sudden onset that maybe lasts 1 or 2 seconds in a majority of the patients. And in some patients, we see a more constant pain profile. It can be provoked by being struck by brushing your teeth or putting on makeup. And also in some cases, it just comes without any touching. You can say you can split this up into 2 pain indicators or 2 groups. When you do the MRI, you can actually look at the patients to see if there's something touching the nerve. So here you can do a decompression surgery where you go in and you're trying to relieve the pressure on the nerve. Or if you don't have those in the patient groups that are idiopathic, you would actually need to go to pharmacological treatment. Here, the only approved drug is carbamazepine, an anticonvulsant, which is actually a very dirty drug with a lot of negative side effects, and also with limited effect, an effect that wears off over time. And we can see this because an increasing number of the patients are actually taking other drugs to provide pain relief. So there's a huge unmet medical need here, and these patients are really suffering, actually so bad that the pain is referred to as suicidal pain, because on the scale of pain, this is considered one of the most severe ones you can experience. Again, with our program, so the IP 2015 drug candidate fits very well into this regime of treating neuralgia patients. Next slide, please. So the way we want to develop within trigeminal neuralgia is, again, you can say in an accelerated way, but we also want to de-risk as we move along. And as I said, what we want to do a proof of principle trial in healthy volunteers, where we inflict pain with capsaicin, which is the active pharmaceutical ingredient from chili. And by doing this, we can actually run a panel of various pain profiles on them to make sure that we understand how is the drug behaving over time, what is the relationship between the dosing we are giving and the effect we see on the various pain reliefs. So this is a really important trial, so we actually can make sure when we go into the patients, in the trigeminal neuralgia patients, we will actually do it at the right dose and at the right administration regime. So following that, you can say at the same time we are developing our CMC. So this is the drug product. We are developing that very intensely. So we make sure that the drug product we have actually could be the one we can bring all the way to the market. They will definitely, again, shorten the approval time of a future drug. And then a thing that we are still exploring, and we are talking to the regulatory authorities, is how to design the phase 2, whether we can combine it in and get a phase 2-3 design, so we actually can start generating data for the registration trial as early as 2023. So, very short, modest investment timeline for going into an orphan drug indication. Next slide, please. So, of course, I said before, erectile dysfunction is also still one of our main programs. What we are still fully focused on here is actually bringing our to the non-responders. We want to provide relief to the 30 to 40% of the many patients that do not respond for this, and we will do this in 2 programs, the organic and the psychogenic origin programs. So next slide, please. So here I've listed the 2 clinical programs in ED. So the ongoing IP 2018, which is going to take place, is taking place right now, is in 24 patients. We'll have the readout later this year. And this is, again, a single dosing where we go in and we measure with the Regiscan on the erection function upon visual stimulation. When we have the data in here, we actually want to make sure we develop this and find the right indication for going forward, whether we can find an even smaller segment so we can accelerate the time by getting orphan, or that we could actually take this into a broader indication of ED patients suffering from psychogenic causes. the 2015 trial, the organic erectile dysfunction trial, we have filed, as I said, the application, and we're expecting to get the approval so we can go into a phase 2B with probably 120 patients, and we will get back to the market when we have the protocol approved and share what the final design is going to look like. But what's really important with both programs is that we strengthen the natural erection in these patients. So again, we are very differentiated from everything else in the market, and we can be a first-line treatment for both organic and psychogenic erectile dysfunction to all the non-responders. Next slide, please. So just the last few minutes on the business development. Of course, we want to develop drug candidates to generate clinical data that's attractive for future development and for partners. We are always open for partnership discussions, but we are driving our programs forward independently. So with the data coming out of phase 2B end of next year, we'll be in a very good position to continue the very good discussions that we already have now with the partners. Psychogenic, as I just mentioned, will be the same. When we have the data, we'll find the right indication for that and take the right development strategy. And in the neuropathic pain program, is actually providing a third leg to our clinical pipeline, because this is actually something we can develop all the way to the market. Because the clinical trials, the registration trials are much smaller. That's something that is more financially achievable for a company like Initiator Pharma. So we are generating data that is supportive of an opportunistic business development strategy. And with that, I would like to say thank you and take the last slide.
Okay, thank you very much, Claus, for the presentation, and I'm sorry for the interruption. We have some technical problems with the internet connection, I guess. But anyway, let's have some questions, and we have got some from the audience, and I would like to start. You press released yesterday that you're adjusting your inclusion criteria for the IP 2018 study. Is it possible to give some further details what that means?
Yeah, so you can say so one of the things that we did with this trial using inclusion criteria is that we are trying to make it quite narrow to get us a very homogeneous population. But you can say one thing that's really important when you're doing clinical studies is that you navigate the results, the feedback you get from the recruiters, and what you see, what is people failing on, and then you can loosen up the criteria without compromising getting a good group of patients in. So some of the parameters we have loosened up is where we actually still see that the patients are having these issues with psychogenic erectile dysfunction, but we are now being able to include some of these. Again, just loosening up of some of the inclusion criteria. So this is a good way to do it and still maintaining the quality of the trial.
Is this something that would be relevant for the next trial for IPED 2015 as well, or is this solely for IP 2018?
Yeah, I think that what we see in the 2018 trial is a little bit different, because of course these patients are also people suffering depression, and of course the COVID-19 has not done this easily. Yes, there's been a lot of social distancing, and this is maybe not so good for this patient segment, whereas you can say the organic patients are a little bit different because they are in the different causes of that. So of course, we are continuously monitoring what is the recruitment rates and what is the feedback we get from the recruiters, because you need to navigate this. And this is what we are doing all the time. We have a weekly dialogue with the recruiters. What is the feedback we get, and where is it we see that we do not get people into a trial? And we will definitely have to monitor that very intensely in the 2015 trial, because it is a 120 patient trial.
Mm-hmm. And also, when do you expect to release the top line result for the IP 2018 trial?
Yeah, so now, as we said in the press release, we are with the new inclusion criteria, we would like to see how that impacts the recruitment rate for completing the study. And when we have a better overview there, we will come back to the market with a more exact timeline.
And I have a question about the trigeminal neurology study, and maybe you could just describe why you believe it's a de-risked program. I mean, when it comes to dosing, especially, what kind of doses will you be studying in the phase 1B trial? So in the phase, so I'm not going to take exactly what doses we're going to use, because that's part of our IP strategy, making sure we got the right formulation, so it's giving us extra. What we are going to explore here is, of course, making sure that we will see what we call the PK/PD relationship. How much compound do we need
to actually get this profile. And also remember, in the pain study, it's very different behavior than we see in ED. So maybe we need a lot less of that compound to give this background of pain relief. So this is the things that we need to explore, and the best way to explore it is in a healthy volunteer, a proof of principle pain study.
Mm-hmm. And the last question then is about your financing, does this in any way change your strategy as a company? I mean, could it be more interesting to perhaps want to build a company with sales in the future?
Yeah, I would say right now we are fully focused on making sure we can move trigeminal neuralgia forward. But again, as I said, I think this is a program we can take all the way to the market ourselves. Building up a sales force is, of course, a very different thing for a company. And I think that when we get forward, we'll start considering what is the right strategy. But right now, we want to make sure we have an approved drug in trigeminal neuralgia, and we want to shorten that development time as much as possible.
Okay.
Great value for us and the shareholders. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Claus, for the presentation and the answers on the questions. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you.